All right, guys, here we go with another shave, and this is use number 427 on the Nacet, and this is the one that puts me over Myrna 183, and that's, as far as I know, the longest run in recent history, recent days. I want to look at the marathon page that badgerandblade.com has. There's a forum there. If you're not if you don't know about that and you're a wet shaver, Badger and Blade represents a lot of good information on the internet, and definitely check that out in the forums with reviews and questions and things like that. I think it's a great companion to the wet shaving subreddit that I'm a big part of as well, and they both kind of look at things a little bit differently. And one of the rules that I don't really like about Badger and Blade is you can't put out, like, if I've put out a video about how to lather up a soap or lather up Mitchell's wool fat, for instance, I can't publish a link to that video as a response to somebody's question if it's my link. And motivation obviously is good, so that you're just not filled with people self-promoting when you're trying to sell products or anything like that. But anyway, so that's a little bit limiting. And they definitely have higher opinions of things like Perazzo soap and Simpson's brushes and different things like that. So you can go to different areas of the internet and find nuances and different opinions. And as you're researching products, I definitely advise you to find out as much as you can. All right. And so over there is a thread called the Excalibur Club, and it's a very long thread. One of these days I'm going to walk through it and see if I can find anybody with this many uses on a blade, and we'll see. All right. I'm sure somebody's done it, right? So we've got the usual gear for Austere August, and we are on the what, like the 20th of August, and so just 10 more days or so, and so I better not all of a sudden come up with new things to try with this setup, right? Because we don't have too many more days left. Today we're going to try the boar brush here with a squeezed out boar brush without as much water in it. We're going to load in the soap here, Chisel Face Midnight Stag, and we are going to try that dry load. And you should go a little bit longer than we did last time I did a dry load experiment. The razor, as usual, is Karve Christopher Bradley with a B solid bar plate. I've been enjoying that comfortable plate all month. I'm going to get the brush back in the water. I have had it in there for several minutes. I do have my 40 milliliters of water, and I wrapped a paper towel around one of my lights up that direction, and so maybe it's giving me a little softer light. Definitely not casting a shadow on the back as much as a well-defined shadow, at least. So maybe that has diffused the light just a little bit and helped things out. Yesterday I used my new to me, and I found online, I did a search, I was able to find a picture of this exact one, and not this exact one, but this exact model. It looked more like this, and I found some sources that said it was anodized copper. So maybe so. I do know that it was really easy to rinse, and it's not providing any drag or anything on my brush as I'm moving around. So I continue to use this with great anticipation. All right, so let me get my face wet. And as we load the blade up here, I wanted to mention something that I learned, because if you've watching my recent shaves, you'll see how I've been using a basin below. I'm not in front of a sink right now. I've been using a basin. I have a separate bowl of water to swish my razor around in to get rid of stubble. And those are my two water areas right here. And I've learned that I need, with a sink, I had the luxury of splashing both sides of my face at once with both hands. But then water dribbles from my hands when I do that, and my basin's not that wide, and so I've learned, and I did it just this time as well as at the end of last time, splash we use only one hand, splash one side of the face at a time, and that way the water will dribble back into the basin. It won't get all over my towel and be quite as messy. So I'm learning little bits of things as we go here. This is the Nacet blade that I've been using, and let us put it in the Karve razor. All right, so today, tighten that down. We are going to try, here's a soap. As you can see, it's just barely going down because 5 seconds is all I need to get 6 passes of lather. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to squeeze that brush out before we load. Now, I tried squeezing the brush out with a 5-second load before, and boy, the lather just felt really thin. So why don't we try 10-second load with the squeezed out brush and see what the difference might be. Maybe the water that's not in the squeezed out brush, maybe in the normal situation where there is that water, it combines with the surface soap here to suck up more soap into the brush. And so maybe we're relying more on the bristles now to stir up soap since it's a drier brush. So 10 seconds. We'll go to the 7 mark on the next second decade. Just kind of medium pressure. And there we go. Now, okay, look, it's very different. You don't have the slurry, of course, as you do with the other. And this is what the dry brush, it does look more frothy and more creamy than when I load with a wetter brush. Okay, and there's not really any, I don't see a way to like wipe up the extra, you know, to put it in the bowl. So I'll just leave it as it is there. Oh, and if I do anything on my shelf here, you guys might, you guys might shake a little bit. Sorry about that. All right, so there is still some water in this brush, even though I did squeeze it. And so let's just kind of try to combine it with the soap that we just loaded. You know, the only bad thing about this particular lather bowl so far has been its propensity to do that dinking on the side, because, you know, these flutes that kind of stick in, a little hard to keep track of sometimes. So we've got these divots at the bottom of the bowl. And what I'm curious is if I ever use I'm sure I will, I'll use a sample or a soap that I've spooned out, you know, I could easily press them into those divots. What I want to make sure is that it's easy to then have the brush rescue and pull out that soap and combine it with the lather. I want to make sure that the divot isn't so deep that it's difficult for the brush to get in there and get that soap, get access to that soap. Oh, I just splat. Oh, okay, so if the brush hits one of these little fluted areas just right, it can actually kind of shoot the water up, almost like a squirt gun there. So a 10-second load, and I'm very used to how much lather I'm getting with a 5-second load with my normal amount of kind of a wet brush. Lightly wet is what I call it. And so we'll be able to compare the two. So I added some water, and I'm not getting a ton of soap here. That's definitely less than I have with my 5-second load with a wetter brush. So maybe we didn't, again, pick up quite as much soap as before. Let me tilt you guys down. So yeah, we've got the occasional clank, especially when I try to get to the sides to make sure I get a good mix. You know, if this, I mean, this is copper, so I could potentially take some kind of hammer and reduce the fluting on the sides. It would feel like a little bit of a heresy to take a kind of vintage jello mold and beat it up. Well, this definitely looks like I'm going to have plenty of lather to do the job. Brush moves smoothly. I've had bowls that were stainless steel that seem to have some kind of drag on the brush. I don't know what it is. Related to some kind of surface tension issue, perhaps, or some type of property with the stainless steel that just grabs a hold of stuff when wet. Okay, we just put in about 20 milliliters of water total. And so I think I better stop mixing here. I may have thinned it out too much already with that. So let's just give this a good mix and hope for the best. So are you guys going to be robbing your grandma's jello molds, taking a trip to grandma's house and see what she has? See what she has on her wall? Well, it sure looks like a good lather. There are definitely some other bases, like sterling, for instance, where would be too firm, and I would need to add more water. But this is a different base, and I believe we should not take it any farther. But as you can see, we have plenty of lather to do the job, unless I have over watered it, and I'll need to keep going back and grabbing more lather. All right, this is that spa experience that we all enjoy with this type of shaving. The lathering process here is just one of the highlights for me, and that's why I like soft, comfy brushes. Some of you guys may enjoy the close shave as a priority, and there's no problem with that. But I really enjoy this aspect of it. I'm feeling the density here of these bristles as indeed this lather is thinning down. So I'm making sure to kind of roll and circulate, and then I can also go back in here. It's definitely going to perform because I've used this kind of lather before this month for sure. And it's going to give me wonderful protection and slickness, even though it may not look like a big old puffy grandpa's beard lather. And not going to be a problem at all. Now got pretty good coverage, and so I just want to make sure I work it into my skin to protect and to lubricate. You see those tiny little fragments flying off? I think sometime, well, this brush has got some stiffness to it. I think that has a lot to do with it. But I think a lather that maybe has a little bit too much wetness can sometimes do that too. The little almost bubbles, little small soap fragments, soap dust we could call it. Flies off sometimes. Yeah, see, I only had to go back to the lather bowl once to kind of refill the brush. That's not too bad. All right. So my last shave was kind of a long shave. Maybe a day and a half of growth, something like that. And so this one is a shorter one, so we're going to be enjoying it almost as if the blade was young and new again. When you are scientifically curious, like me, about how many shaves a blade can give you, you know, in the middle of that sentence, I thought to myself, do I really need to use the word scientifically when I'm saying curious? Because I can just be curious without being scientific, right? And that made me think about something else, and I lost the train of thought. Let me rinse. Oh, you know what? I was just mentioning that I was just thinking and wanted to mention again something I've said before. This, when you push blades this far, the end of that sentence is you, at least I, have learned to cherish using it regularly instead of letting the growth go like 2 days. The brush, the razor blade definitely performs better if I use it daily instead of skipping a day. You definitely get more tugginess, that sort of thing. I made sure to not have any excess water on my face so that the lather was a little bit less wet. And so we've just put 2 passes on. We still have plenty of lather there in the bowl. Because of the short shave, I didn't have a tuggy pass on pass number 1, and this one definitely feels like I've got a nice smooth face afterwards. It's the benefit. Sometimes you have a little bit more tugginess if you have a shave where you've gone a little bit long, a little bit too much growth, but then you get the benefit of the short one after that, right? If you get back to a daily schedule. Now, because of that, what if I can just kind of attack this area, because everything else feels good. So what if I just attack this area here with my kind of against the grain carefulness, kind of an oblique against the grain pattern. Well, we can call it slant pattern against the grain. And that seems to be kinder to my face. Now, speaking of marathons, I think it might be Old Hiker, and he is on the Reddit wet shaving, but I think he also has a presence on either Damn Fine Shave or Badger and Blade, and he recently has been posting on the Excalibur Club thread because he's gotten a good number of uses. I really enjoy him. We have a lot in common in terms of, I think it's probably the kind of lathers that we like, that sort of thing, the kind of soaps that we really enjoy. So we definitely have some built-in common preferences there. And he shaves a lot with a Weck Sexto Blade. WECK is the brand. You can definitely find them on eBay, but I don't know enough about them. I have found some of those for very cheap. And then I believe it uses a Persona. I think he said he was using a Persona blade. Um, but I don't know what refill it is. I don't know because I feel like I think there's something called a Weck hair shaper, and I don't know if that's the same blade that he uses in his Sexta blade. Um, I need to. I'm going to tag him in this SOTD write up because I'd love to hear more information about that. I think he said he's gotten 250 shaves off of one of those Persona blades for the Weck Sexta blade, and I believe it's a razor system where you do change the blade out almost like a single edge razor, and it's like a shavette style. You know, you treat it like you know a straight razor, but it's like the artist club, that sort of thing, where you change the blade out. Only his blade is lasting a long time, and so that might be neat to see if that's available, especially for cheap. Might be fun to try that out, see where he gets his blades, which blades he's using, whether it's those hair shaper blades or some other kind, because that could be a really good value for you guys out there. I know that the artist club blades, I think for a lot of people, they don't last a super long time. I know that the SE blades aren't going to last me for too long. Maybe 30 shaves, I'm not sure, but that doesn't come anywhere near what I'm able to get with a DE, right? There's something just different in the blade. The thickness, maybe the angle grind, I don't know. Maybe with the single edge blades, maybe it's a single angle that makes the edge. I know that with a DE blade, we've seen some magnification of a whole bunch of different blades online, and they have kind of compound grinds where you've got your angle there, and then right at the very tip, it takes a little bit more extra off there. And so with the thickness, you've got some stability, but then at the very end, it gets really, really tight and sharp or something like that. So maybe with the SEs, they don't do something compound. I'm just guessing here. Because I'm pretty confident that with my SE blade, I'm not gonna, even the Gem PTFE, which is widely regarded as the better one, I'm not able to, I bet I'm not gonna be able to approach what I can do with a DE. Well, there we go. This feels really nice. I feel, oh, and this area over here gave me a problem the other day, but it feels good too. So I think we are golden. And it seems like maybe if I'm doing a squeeze out operation like you saw, I need to do a 10-second load, because this roughly looks like about how much I get if I do the after 2.5 passes, if I do the wet load, the lightly wet. So it does seem that a squeezed out brush will pick up less soap than the lightly wet one, at least with this soap base. That could be something that differs per soap base. Worth it to try out just to see. All right. Midnight Stag. This is that white label. The soap and the aftershave are the older white label. I believe the formula is the same. I still haven't asked Ron about that to make sure. Sure feels like the same base. Good stuff. And then the cologne, the EDP, Chiseled Face, Midnight Stag, and then we are getting close to the weekend. On Sunday, I'll have to switch over to 4 sprays on each arm, because that's the variation of the Midnight Stag challenge that I'm doing. Again, Stephen Joyner of Dogwood Handcrafts is the guy who does that challenge. He sponsors it. He gives out rewards. And with Austere August, there are no set rules, and so guys just do side challenges as they want. And so Stephen's offered up some prizes, and he hasn't really announced what they are. He just said if you use Midnight Stag every day, you'll get a prize. And with the more dedication toward Midnight Stag, the better the prize, is I believe what he said. Very cool. Oh, still continue to love the scent. The lather, I really think it's the same lather, whether I load with a squeezed out brush or a brush that's a little more wet. And so I don't think one of them gives you a creamier lather, for instance, or necessarily. But I think that's something that you might want to test per soap base that you have, because some of the soap bases may respond a little better to a drier load or a wetter load. There may be some soap bases out there that you really need to come at it with a sopping wet brush. Oh, hey, let's take an opportunity now to mention the Marco method. It is since today was a short shave, I have a few minutes. With the Marco method, you take your brush. Let me illustrate. Here's this Paladin Clio. I did a test lather yesterday with Williams mug, serving the secondary function of just cleaning the brush knot out because it's a brush I recently got in. And the tips here aren't super soft. They're a little soft, and the backbones seem fairly easy to splay as I was kind of doing a palm lather. But the tips seem kind of blunt, soft but blunt. And so I think I'm going to, again, get that ropey feel like I've got with some other brushes. And so this particular knot coat at least might have that feel to it. But with the Marco method, you've soaked your brush in water, and then you take it out and you maybe let the water drip only what gravity pulls away from the brush. You don't do any shaking. A lot of people, as their normal face lathering habit, will do that, but they'll give it 2 shakes. And then whatever water's left in the brush, that's what they like to start out with. Well, with the Marco method, it's designed to come at the soap with a lot more water. And so you don't shake the brush. You go right, you let drip out whatever's going to drip out just due to gravity. You come over and you very lightly start moving the brush over the soap. You don't press down, you don't splay or anything like that. Just very lightly, you let the tips do the work. And there are some online threads out there to tell you more detail if you're interested in the Marco method. The guy named Marco came up with it as a response to dealing with soft Italian crepes, specifically was his desire. And I discovered the last time I used Midnight Stag for Austere August, as you know, I'm trying different variations. Since I'm using the same gear all the time, I tried the Marco method with the B2 bore brush from Zenith that I was using that time. And I discovered that Chiseled Face Midnight Stag does not like the Marco method with that bore brush. Maybe every bore brush, I don't know, didn't test it out. But man, it just did not pick up the soap. I think what had happened was the brush was so wet that it was slipping over the surface of the soap instead of kind of reaching in and pulling some out. I think that water impeded the ability to get the soap out just because there was so much of it. And so I would back off on the water, do my normal thing where I shake most of the water out, and then the soap would load up just fine. And so it's going to differ per soap base. But if you're looking for something to vary your routine, then I think that's a great thing to try out. Also, it's something that is definitely recommended if you're having trouble with your lathers as something to try. I personally like the method that I show you all the time, where I take a lightly wet brush to the soap for a while, and then I start it working up in the bowl and I gradually add water. That's just the way I do it. I think it's really good for new guys as well, or guys who are struggling with their lathers. But the Marco method is another way, because you know you're starting out with a good bit of water in your brush. And oftentimes water is a solution to a person having lather problems. And so and now here's the thing with the Marco method, you work the soap for a long time until it kind of looks like a slurry on top, I think. Watch the videos if you're curious about that. But that's one of the things. You come at it really wet, just the tips, just let the tips touch the soap, and you do it for a while. And so maybe what's happening is there at the surface of the soap, you are starting to work in that water and the soap together to get that kind of slurry that you can then go to face lathering and that kind of thing. So it's something fun to try. Wanted to let you guys know, for those of you who may have never heard of it, it definitely gets mentioned every once in a while. All right. I think we're done. I think we're done. Yeah. Hey, here's a little tip for you guys in the cooking world before we sign off for today. Um, I mentioned recently how I got an air fryer from the thrift shop. That's a big deal. I really enjoy it. Uh, I use it to reheat French fries, for instance, from a restaurant. It brings them back to real nice crispness. But it's awesome for frozen chicken wings and meatballs. I like it to cook hot dogs because you can cook them slow and they plump up nicely instead of the microwave. How it makes the ends hard. And so the air fryer is a big deal for me in the cooking world. It's a big change. I mean, I'm not going to bring you every little cooking tip I ever heard right on this channel, but this one is even more significant. This is something that I didn't know existed until a while back. This particular one is called a butter bell, and they exist in a few different forms. And this I found at the thrift shop. I've got one at my house, and that we've used for years now, and I love it. It looks very strange, right? You know now that it holds butter, but why would we need all this to hold butter? I'll tell you, here's the deal. I grew up without this, and you have to keep butter on one of those little butter trays, and maybe you have a cover for it, and you sit it out on your counter if you like to have room temperature butter, because after all, when you spread it on your toast or your English muffin, whatever you want to eat your butter on, if it's from the refrigerator, then it's very thin. I'm sorry, it's very cold, and it doesn't spread at all. Now you can do things like take a vegetable peeler and peel off a shaving of butter, and that actually softens really quickly. It's a little pro tip if you're in an emergency situation. But in general, you have to keep it out at room temperature to let it be spreadable. And man, what is better on those type of breads than nice butter that's melted into the bread? You know, instead of you having to cut it up into chunks when it's cold from the refrigerator. Well, that's where this guy comes into play, because he keeps butter safe at room temperature. If you set your little tray out, then it can go rancid after a while, depending on how quickly you use up butter, obviously. But at room temperature, that butter will go rancid because of bacteria that can get in it. Well, here's what this guy does. This is the bell, and this is where the butter goes. And when you fill it with butter, you use a spoon, you soften the butter by having it at room temperature for a while, and you take chunks of it and you press it down into the bottom here with your spoon. And then this is exactly the right size for one stick of butter, and it comes up almost to the exact flush with the surface here. You fill this full of about a centimeter, half an inch of water inside. Then when this gets placed upside down in there, the idea is for this lip to go just in the water. And when it does that, now you've got an airtight seal because the water is being the seal. So this sits on your kitchen counter, and you have the water there to be the airtight seal, and so butter can sit in this for a very long period of time because there's no bacteria getting in it because of the watertight seal. Whenever you need it, you just lift up the little bell out of it. The water stays in there. Now, every few days, you have to check the water and make sure it stays at the right level, because after all, if the water gets too low, it's not gonna seal up properly. The butter does stay in there as long as you press it in and make sure the butter touches all the walls. Then the surface area, the surface tension there, the pressing and stuff will definitely keep the butter in there. You don't store this next to your toaster, because if this thing gets hot, the butter will just floosh out and you don't want that. But butter has no problem staying in there as long as you make sure it contacts the surfaces. And when you pull it out, you may get a drop of water around here or something like that, but big deal. It's not a big deal at all. So I love how this keeps nice, fresh butter at room temperature for me for when I choose to have something warm and toasty to spread it on. Just a little tip. And I've seen other kinds to where it looked more like a bowl, and the thing that went down in it was the reverse of the bowl, and it was a small opening. So there's different kinds, but this is the one that we had, and I picked it up at the thrift shop for just a few dollars. Man, somebody did not know the benefit of this guy. All right, well, that is the shave for today. In my cleanup process with my basin, looks like I make 2 trips to the bathroom. One, because I don't want to carry my grandma's basin with any other objects, and it's heavy and cumbersome, and I also don't want to spill the water that's in there, the water in suds. So I do 1 trip with that, and then I have 2 bowls that need to be cleaned out. I have the lather bowl, and it's got the brush in there too, and then this is my swish bowl that has the water in there that I swish my razor in to clear the stubble out. And so these need to be washed, and I think it's going to be nice for me to take them both in the same run, because this is the bowl that has the residue from the shave, this top one. And so I can, as I'm cleaning my brush, I can use it to quickly clean up the residue from inside this blue bowl here. And I believe with just 2 runs, I think that should make it good. And so that's not too bad. 2 runs to the sink after this kind of shave with a basin. And here's what the brush looks like after the good towel strop. I don't have a towel hanging from a hook here. I need to install that. And so I'm using the towel that's hanging on the table as my catch water towel. And so I'm not giving it as vigorous of a scrub down in the last few shaves. And so this guy definitely seems like the kind of brush that might need that if you want to help it to break in a little quicker. But you know, it's enjoyable now, and so I don't really need to try to hasten things too much. But that's what he looks like after a good drying off with a hand drying off with a towel. So that's interesting. 10 seconds of loading with a dry brush. We'll see what we want to try tomorrow. And there we go. Nice comfy shave, no irritation, anything like that. And the basin shaving still going relatively well. I mean, the bathroom's not too far away, and it's just now before the shave, I think it's 1 trip to the bathroom is all I need to fill up kind of my big bowl here of water, and then to fill up the swish bowl, and I can do that in 1 run. And so as long as I clean everything after the end of the shave, then 1 run is all it takes to start and do the whole shave. And then at the end, because of the things you have to clean and rinse, then two runs are what it takes. Now, you know what I could see? And the artwork on this bowl here reminds me about this. I could totally see why people might want to just open the window, throw out the dishwater out of the window, right? Would that be convenient? All right. Man, good shave today. Nice hanging out with you guys for a moment. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves, and Midnight Stag continues, and this is the shave that puts me over the top. 427 uses. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and put that dot on there now. And now I think I'm correct. But just in case there's some kind of error, the description of the video always has the right count, because it's the computer's incrementing it as we go for me. 427. How long will it go? I do not know. Take care, guys.